Hello, it's Chad from the Higher Living Show. We're on episode 51, and today we're looking at what has been observed during an extended 30-day THC break. Now, there's a number of different points to mention during this time. Firstly, a full spectrum CBD was used during this time, so there are still obviously trace amounts of THC that have been used during this. The patient was me. We're not trying to say that the results from this clinical trials findings. What we're doing is showing you the results from an N of one. And the advantage is that I've done an extended break, minimum of a month every year since 2018. So we've got comparable data and we're going to be able to present some of that to you today. Now, just to note, the data has obviously got stronger as we've gone on each year. And so what we've done, just to ensure the credibility of this, is broken it down into two key segments, which is 2023 until 2025. Last year, 2024, I became a father for the first time and I didn't do the break. It was the first year that I didn't do that extended THC break. Be mindful, this is not medical advice. What we are presenting, and the reason we are doing this, is to inform you as patients around what are the differences that have been noted, what are some of our hypotheses that we've noted during this time, and what are some lessons to share that hopefully other people can pick up and continue to move along with. This is Higher Living with Chad. Let's go. Now, what we have observed from an average dose of 7.5 milligrams of THC to a dose of CBD, which has been quite consistent at 60 milligrams of CBD, which is on the lower side. What we have seen is no significant difference between the times when I was utilizing a THC compared to the times when I've been utilizing a CBD, which shows that symptom relief was achieved when I was using both THC and CBD. Now, a few key points to mention with this. One is that what we observed was much longer onset time when I was utilizing a CBD. And that therapeutic window was between 4 to 8 hours. Now, this is a significant increase from 2023 when I was utilizing CBD during the window, and that was noted to be around 2 hours and 20 minutes. Now we're observing that window's being pushed out to 4 hours. I'm very interested to get some comments on that. One of the other key factors that we've noted was the lack of euphoria. So there was no euphoria, no high when dosing at 60 milligrams of CBD or up to 80 milligrams of CBD, which was the max. And obviously, when dosing with THC, one of the factors of it being psychoactive is that there is the euphoria. What this means is that the effect of CBD on symptoms was similar and no difference, yet it was a much more subtle experience. Now, what's also crucial to mention is that during 2023, during the 30-day extended THC reset, we saw significant spikes in stress. However, those spikes were more stable this time around 2 years later. Now, there could be a number of ways to be able to interpret that. One could be that alongside this dosing regimen that I had this time, I also had one of my lifestyle protocols and a sleep protocol that I implemented into this, and I can go into that in another detail. But what it indicates, I was much more stable and I didn't have any spikes. The same stresses are upon me. But potentially integrating and going hard at a lifestyle approach during this time has probably been a significant factor in being able to stabilize that stress. While we're on the issue of stress, and stress is something that is present in my life, as you can see, we continue to talk about it. What we noted was that there were some cravings. So there were some cravings for THC that were experienced during this 30-day period. And I want to highlight a number of key points. One is that both the frequency and the intensity of the cravings was significantly less than any prior year before. So as indicated, I've done this a number of years, particularly that first year, there was multiple different cravings on a daily basis, and that intensity was ranging from a 7 to 8. Now we're getting peaks of, say, a 4. The other key factor was that the cravings, when they were experienced, were typically at a time of day that was consistent with how I would have dosed THC in the past. And the third is that there was also cravings with association. So and what I mean by this is, say that there is an activity that I had done in the past where I would consume THC. By removing the THC and still utilizing CBD, there were cravings associated with that timing. So there's a patterning that is associated with, I'm going to do X or Y. And during that time, I had used THC, a craving could be experienced. Now, the reason we're outlining some of this is only on an individual basis, but these are key learnings and lessons that could be supportive to your patients or could be supportive to you if you're managing your own care. All right, so let's move on to dosing. This is very interesting, right? So in 2023, what we saw were that my ranges started at 66 milligrams of CBD, and we're up to the upper thresholds around 500 milligrams of CBD, which is on the higher end. There's no doubt about it. And what we've seen this time is that I've had a very stable dose of 60 milligrams. My lowest range was 10 milligrams, and my most upper threshold was 80 milligrams. And so we're talking about significant reductions in terms of my dosing, but getting the same therapeutic benefit and value and not getting any of the spikes that we've seen before. So that is super, super interesting for me. And I think there's, a number of different points that we could tap into and potentially have a discussion if anyone's interested in this. There's a whole range of other things that go along with it, but we're looking at, over 60% reductions in dose amount, but getting the same benefits. Okay, so on to the next one. This is an observation. What we saw is a temporal association between increased muscle soreness, which was associated with the time that I was on CBD rather than THC. So let me break this down. What this means is that the psychoactive component of THC, which binds to the CB1 receptor, is more associated with giving, well, in this instance, was more associated with giving relief, which is pain relief, rather than when I was utilizing the CBD alone. Now, the reason we're saying that is I found that very interesting. And why would I have muscle soreness? I train a lot. I'm very focused on my physical activity, and I've got a competition that's coming up very soon. And so I am training, as I always have been training, but that training hasn't really differed to the past. But what I have seen and noted in the past was that when I was utilizing THC, I had more benefit in terms of reducing that muscle soreness. So who could this be applicable for? One of the gym bros and gym girls out there running marathons, playing contact sports, and doing martial arts, etc. There can be some argument to suggest that THC could be beneficial. Yeah, but that is not medical advice as indicated before. Then let's move on to a hypothesis that we noted. So the hypothesis is that THC enhances a parasympathetic activity within the body. Now, what that means is that THC has a better capacity to support my body to get into rest and repair than CBD alone. Now, it's a big sort of hypothesis, and I wasn't expecting that, to be honest, in the first instance. And the way we were able to see that is elevated heart rate. So obviously we were tracking a number of different measurements and ranges during this time as well, with biometrics that are associated with OnTracker. And so we have very reliable patterning in terms of harder data, not just patient reported outcomes. And what we saw was a steady and not a significant, but what we saw was a sustained increase in resting heart rate, which is a key indicator to show the regulation of my autonomic nervous system. And so one of the hypotheses that requires further investigation is, does THC get your body into a state of rest and repair better than CBD. That's a key one. It's a key factor that we should be exploring in more detail. So let's move on to sleep. And I think this is a fairly important one to look at as we start finishing up. So what we noted was a temporary increase in difficulty falling asleep, which is very consistent with what we hear when individuals stop utilizing THC. And so what we saw was for 3 days, temporary challenges in getting to sleep. Now, to note, that was like a 2% rise. So it's not majorly significant, was enough to be talking about though for me. And what we saw was that averaged out during the 30 days. So it was initially experienced and then it averaged out. So it wasn't an issue. But again, pretty key finding. So if you're thinking about doing an extended break or you're thinking about removing THC from your life, even with sleep protocols, red lights, and all sorts of things that go on in terms of switching the mobile off and how you get ready for bed, etc., there was still slight difficulty that was experienced. Now, key point, it didn't stay the whole month and it left after around 3 days. So just be prepared. I'm not trying to create challenges for you. This is more about sharing some of my learnings. So hopefully it can help your patients or help you on your path to feeling better. But if we're looking at sleep, overall sleep quality improved. So the times that I felt refreshed in the morning increased significantly, which is around 15%. Feeling much more refreshed during these 30 days compared to the wider 12 months when consistently utilizing some form of THC or combinations between THC and other minor cannabinoids. So a final conclusion would be that during this time, where max dose was 80 milligrams, which is way under what most people think. And again, this is just for me. This isn't about anyone else. And again, I've played with the upper thresholds in the past and I've been able to bring it right down. Yeah, so with that stable dose of around 60 milligrams and the addition of a sleep and lifestyle protocol during this time, what we've been able to see is a very effective strategy, which has been able to optimize my health and well-being and being able to treat or manage most of my symptoms to suggest that this is a synergistic cannabinoid strategy which has been applied. And I think there are major lessons here that could continue a conversation, particularly when there's a need for data in this industry on a global level right now. There's a number of things that we've just opened up which we could significantly expand upon. I've been super interested to do this one. One of my main motivations was to be that human guinea pig, and I think it's been super beneficial. I'm actually not going to go back on THC in this instance. I'm going to continue on CBD for the time being, and I will be collecting more data to share at a later stage. This is Chad from High Living. It's powered by On Tracker, and I thank you for your attention.